Welcome back to the Empowered Path podcast, the space where we have real, unfiltered conversations with powerful humans rising from their own ashes. I'm your host, Heather Ritson, empowerment coach, organization development and change practitioner, and founder of Phoenix Empower LLC. Today, I'm honored to share the mic with someone whose journey embodies resilience, growth, courage to own their truth. Today's guest is a true force, someone who shows us what it means to lead, heal, and shake the table all at once. Rebecca wears many hats. She's a partner, a dog mom, kickboxing instructor, a theatric storyteller, and a licensed mental health therapist. With a mission that runs deep, she doesn't just talk about empowerment, she lives it by challenging the narratives around health, body image, and whose voices get heard. With nearly a decade of experience in mental health and practice rooted in EMDR, health at every size, and internal family systems, she's passionate about making mental health care radically accessible. From support groups to therapeutic Dungeons and Dragons campaigns, she's not afraid to stir the pot, especially when it means dismantling diet culture, amplifying marginalized voices, and creating a space where more people get a seat and a mic. And now she's returning to her roots in theater for social change with Issue Box Theater, using storytelling as a tool for healing, advocacy, and awakening. If you've ever questioned what truth health looks like, if you've been on your own health with your own journey with body image, identity, or finding your voice, this conversation will move you. Let's welcome the multi-hyphenate, radically honest, and deeply passionate Rebecca Juliana to the Empowered Path podcast. Thanks for joining us, Rebecca.
Hi.
So tell us all a little bit more about yourself. You have so many awesome things happening.
Yeah, it is just wild to hear someone else say all the things sometimes. Yeah, I like to stick my hands in a lot of pots. Um, well, I am a licensed therapist practicing in Ohio. I'm in a group practice right now. We are focused on providing therapy to the LGBTQ community, specifically. Not that we aren't open to everyone, but specifically very advertising as like affirming and safe. Um, so that is my full-time job. I teach a couple kickboxing classes in the mornings every once in a while. Um, I am really excited to have like wiggled my way into Issue Box Theater, also based out of Toledo, Ohio, where they do a lot of really cool work with the community, using like theater and storytelling as a tool for healing and as like the modality, if you will, that like uses creativity to allow people to express themselves and their own story in ways they may not have been able to before. So yeah, I like to spread myself thin. So it's a skill.
It truly is. I agree with that. So the theater, tell me more about that. I find that so like fascinating using do you lead it? Do you just partake in it? Like tell me more about what the Issue Box Theater is, what kind of space, who can join. Like tell me more about that. I'm so interested.
Mm-hmm. I wish I knew exactly how it all started. The the creative director, Rosie Best, is also a licensed therapist. And what I know about how it started was this was something she created in her like master's program, with like some project that I also recall having to do was like create a like community nonprofit thing. And then when she graduated, like she made it happen. So it's been operating for about 10 years, and has grown, I think, more than she ever imagined from that initial project. So yeah, Issue Box Theater is a nonprofit. There's like a board that they just added a couple members to, which is exciting as well. So like people have like applied to be part of the board. And I think really it is like any kind of community space is like welcome to reach out to Issue Box to be like, hey, do you have a thing that we could do? So Issue Box does a few like productions throughout the year, and then they also do a lot of workshops. I know right now, anyway, they are. I just read it from Rosie that she's on a meeting today, like a full day training for the Young Artists at Work program in Toledo. So it's going to be like 6 weeks of young people, kind of like a summer camp, I guess. Like encouraging them to find voice and art through the creativity bit. So there's a lot of options. There are a lot of workshops that already exist. The one project that I have inserted myself on is called the I Want You to See Me project, which we shortened to See Me a lot. This year will be the 6th year that it's running. And it is a culmination of recording people telling their own stories. And then we sort of create a like film around that. And then that way, what I feel like is really important about that project too is that there's always this thing around, right, that we're like giving a voice to the voiceless when nobody is voiceless. Like these people have their own voice and they have their own story, and by allowing their own words and like their literal recorded voice, it's just giving them a platform to say their story, not taking the microphone away, but rather like presenting the table and being like, hey, you wanna sit here? So that's been really powerful. They work with like let's see, what other community things. I know that there is also a lot of work being done with nursing homes in the area to talk about like what it's like to live with Alzheimer's, and that they're like a forgotten people, even though they still are people. We have participants from like the Thomas Werner Center. We have participants from Cherry Street Mission, like a homeless shelter in Toledo. So there's a lot of like connections between those social resources and giving people the chance to share why they're there, or even like just what's important to them in the moment. It doesn't even have to be anything about mental health, just like, you know what, I really enjoyed moving here, and like they'll tell us that story. So long-winded way to say it is just really fun to be able to take meet people and take their own words and like make the platform.
So when you say make the platform, is that where people just show up and they just share their own stories, or they share their stories and then you create like a performance out of it? Like what does that look? What do you mean by platform? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. I think the very first iteration of performance was created, and then COVID happened. So it's all been virtual since then. And they had to switch, like Issue Box had to switch the way they were presenting the See Me project. So yeah, they use their own voice. I am thinking specifically like the Thomas Werner Center is like a community resource that's available to, I think, anyone in Lucas County with a mental health diagnosis. And so we'll like show up there. And if there's anyone interested in being a part of the project, like they can come in and sit down with us. And we will, all the consent processes, right? Tell them all what this was all about. Record their story. We'll go back and like clean it up or edit it. And there's just a lot of consent involved. So they're involved the whole way through. So we don't just take their words and create something out of it. We take their words, edit it, bring it back to them. And then we like get approval the whole step of the way. We will add like visuals, short little clips of things. I mean, it's really made a lot out of Canva. So sometimes they're just sort of stock images, but participants are welcome to like send in their own pictures, which I think then is really cool too. That they can send in whatever is relevant to their stories, and we'll take those and add them into the little video. And that too, every visual gets approval by the participant. Like if we make the video and the voice goes with it, like we show it to them and is like, is this, did we get it? You know, is there anything we're missing? Did we get it? Is this what you wanted to share? Do the visuals represent that? And if it's a no, we go back to the drawing board or ask them more specific questions. So then every participant has like, I think they get about like 4 to 5 minutes in the film, and it's all like edited together and then presented. Usually in the past 5, it's been presented at the International Anti-Human Trafficking and Social Justice Conference at UT. And Rosie always gives a presentation there too. So it's presented there specifically and then is like available virtually for a week or so. And then that becomes the platform. Yeah.
That's so awesome. So what are some of the most like impactful things that you've heard within that space? Like somebody's story, maybe the impact it's had on you. Like what is like the biggest thing that you've had?
I think the most impactful thing for me so far has been like actually sitting with the participant through their recording. Like previously I have just been able to like watch the virtual See Me project. But being more involved, I get to like sit there with them. I wasn't there for the first recording, but I got to come along with Rosie when we went back to see our participants at the Thomas Werner Center. And so I was there presenting the like first like rough cut of audio, and kind of harking back to what I said, it's just a different experience hearing someone else say something about you. And then for these participants too, like they're hearing themselves tell their own story. So like, right, I'm sitting in a room with a person who just shared like a really deep story about childhood, you know, involving any of the things that childhood can involve. And they aren't just hearing a story, they're hearing themselves say all these words that they've never gotten the chance to say before. And that has just been really powerful. I don't think there's been a single time with sitting with somebody hearing their own voice with their own story, like they've never had a dry eye. So it's really emotional and it's really powerful, and it's really cool to provide someone with that experience where all I'm doing is just repeating what they've said, right? Repeating themselves. I'm not really doing anything other than like, here's the microphone. So it feels a little bit gross to say like providing someone with the opportunity, but I suppose that's what it is. But it's not that I'm providing anything more than like a recording device, you know?
I think it's really impactful though, because it's so important to share our stories and other people's stories because we hold it inside for so long. And so I think you've probably definitely seen this even within your therapy practice, right? People just coming in and just divulging everything to you, right? I know that as well. But, you know, for people that don't, you know, mental health in some cultures and some populations is still a taboo topic, right? Like you're fine.
Yeah.
You don't have anxiety, you know?
Nah. Figure it out.
Right. But like, especially like the Thomas Werner Center, that is, from what I remember correctly, so correct me if I'm wrong, is like a mental health, disabilities type, inclusive type community center type thing. Is that correct? So like in those spaces, you know, most people with that population, they dictate what they do all the time. So they're
Yeah.
never offered that opportunity and space to say, no, tell us. Like, we're not telling
Hmm.
you your story. We want you to tell us. I think
Yeah.
it's so like so amazing.
Yeah. And it's cool that people want to. I think like the original fear I think I had was like, God, no one's gonna volunteer for this. Like who wants to like put themselves on blast or put their family on blast, you know? And it's not even no one is putting anyone on blast, right? In those things, it's just like this is who I am as a person, and like here's all the things that may or may not have led to that. And yeah, it's really powerful and really cool.
Yeah, that's so awesome. So what's Rebecca's story?
um that's so funny.
Well, you
Um,
offer the space for so many people. So what's your story? It has me wondering.
hmm, my gut instinct is to be like, come back to me in a week and I'll have something beautiful made for you. Which is, you know, we could get into that or not. I with some of my coworkers sometimes I'll say like they're not even problematic things, but similar things, right? Like, oh, we don't have to talk about me, right? And I'll be like, yeah, and I see that, and no, I won't be going in deeper into that. Thank you very much. Because they're all therapists. um, hmm, I don't know. I think Rebecca's story, hmm, is hmm, I think primarily based on the desire to give people space, right? I think about anyone who's ever gone into the mental health world, we're not going into that being like good, right? Like we've all got a bit of a story as to how we landed on that side of the therapy desk. Um, and I think there were a lot of opportunities um, either I didn't take or were missed or weren't given in the first place. Um, and so I think that my story comes from that place of like I can provide things to other people because I wanted that or I didn't get it. And so I think in that way it allows me to not live vicariously, but it allows me to give people the opportunities I didn't have, I think all the time. And I have to be careful because sometimes I'm like, oh, so dramatic. No one's comparing anyone's trauma. Um, all the things I parrot to my clients, I have to say back to myself. Um, because you know what was impactful to me is not necessarily going to be impactful to other people. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think growing up in a bigger body, there were a lot of things that were not available to me, or I assumed weren't available to me because of the way I was presenting in the world, if that makes sense. Um, and I just can't live in a space where other people think that about themselves. So I like to be able to provide that opportunity because I needed it. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, it does. So the body image, can you, if you feel comfortable diving into this space, like what were some of that like body image things within yourself or within other people that you're really trying to bring awareness about, shifting the dialogue about, that you see in today's society?
Mm, I mean, that's a bigger conversation in itself as well, right?
Is that episode two?
Yeah, it could be, could be. Where I direct everyone to go listen to another podcast, Maintenance Phase. Gotta go listen to it. No, yeah, I try to think about like the origins of like body image bullshit. Am I allowed to swear on your podcast? I hope so.
Unfiltered, so.
Perfect. I think for me too, it starts so young, which is like so sad, you know? And I think a lot of people can relate to that. in my family, I think it's wildly generational, which I think everyone knows that, but we just don't say it out loud all the time. Um, yeah, I am the middle of five, um, which again, yeah, out of five kids, I've always liked to say that I'm this one. And my mom would probably say that's rude and then agree. um, so I think I'm never quite sure, right, if I, you know, was othered or if I othered myself. Not quite sure. But no, I was never a small kid. I've always been in a bigger body. And I think it's from so young, like the goal was always to make that smaller, always. Um, and there'd be thoughts like, I'd go home from school at like the end of the year and be like, this summer is gonna be so different, and I'm gonna go back to school in the fall, and no one's gonna recognize me. I'm gonna be so skinny, and like how normal that was to me to think is like, oh gosh, the things that I wish I could do for that little girl, right? Ugh. Um, so I don't know. I'll have to look up this person's name. It's leaving my head right now, but I had just attended a conference about eating disorders, and like the internal family systems model of therapy. And Amy Pershing, I think was her name, if I'm not butchering her last name, gave a new presentation, looking at diet culture, from the lens of like cult psychology. And it was fully mind blowing. I felt horrible for the rest of the presenters after that, because I was like, I cannot stop thinking about this presentation. Um, and what she had presented was like, that there in the US specifically, that there's like a culture of body shame, like a cult of body shame, and you get indoctrinated young. One of the things she had mentioned was like, if you think back of like, when was the moment you stopped being in your body, you stopped dancing, you stopped just being one with yourself, and like all of a sudden that shifted and now you're looking at your body. Like there's a moment everyone can think of that, like, oh, I'm being perceived, right? What I'm doing is somehow not the thing I'm supposed to be doing. And that even gives me goosebumps to like think about right now. And the way that I think it is to think about it as a cult, it's like, God, if we were all indoctrinated at like 4 or 5, like we never had a fucking chance of like not thinking this way or feeling this way or like being concerned about body size. And it's pervasive in the culture, because you see it everywhere. I think about the things I saw growing up like in the 90s. Like I'm sure, oh god, you saw it all too, right? The like heroin chic or like slim fast Weight Watchers, Oprah, like all of it was so much everywhere. That now trying to sort of break away from those things, it's like radical. And I can see it in like conversations I've tried to have with my mom or even with like others in general. That like you can sort of see how uncomfortable it makes people, to be like, ooh, actually, like I don't want to talk about your diet right now. Can we talk about something else? Or how uncomfortable it makes people to be like, no, I think like I will wear the comfortable 2-piece to the beach, because it's so much easier to go to the bathroom and I don't really care.
Literally so much easier.
Yes. God, I will never fight the 1-piece swimsuit ever again in my life. A wet 1-piece swimsuit.
That's the key. Once it's wet, it's game over. Like
Over.
there's no going back with that. It's just
No. Like we've all fought with like a sweaty sports bra. I'm not gonna do that on the beach.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. But I think you bring up that is such an interesting like perspective to look at it as a
Hmm.
cult. And I can definitely like once you said that, I was like, yeah, hello.
Yeah.
It's constantly in our faces. We're constantly
Hmm.
being judged by everyone around us, especially since like, launch of like social media in the early around like 2010s when it like really kicked off.
Hmm.
You've seen it so much worse. I mean, think about like the summer mom bod
Yeah.
campaigns that have been just
Hmm.
plastered
Everywhere.
all over social media spaces. And now you have all these moms that are like not eating, barely eating,
Hmm.
trying all these different like diet fads where their body's literally not getting enough nutrients anymore.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah,
crazy.
it really is wild. And that's also like normal, right? Like that's like the part where it's like, oh my God, yeah, definitely a cult. Because how can it be normal to starve? How can it be normal to like ignore your body's like natural processes and like force something else to happen? Um, and then again, you're a radical person trying to leave the cult by being like, no, I'd like to eat 3 meals a day. How how's that radical?
I
um,
oh go ahead.
no, I could talk about that forever.
I was just gonna say, I immediately picture the scene from have you seen Eat, Pray, Love?
Yes.
Where she's in Italy and she reaches for a slice of pizza and her friend is like, "You're gonna eat that?"
Yes. Yes.
And she's like, "Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in Italy. Hello, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, one slice of pizza is not like I'm gonna eat this pizza and I'm gonna go buy bigger jeans tomorrow because
Right.
that's how I want to live my life right now." And I just
Mm-hmm.
remember how like shape shifting almost that scene was for people. Like people
Yeah.
were like, "What?
Well,
We can
yeah.
eat the pizza?" And
Yes,
then
like we're allowed.
yeah, and then her friend just grabs the pizza and she like slowly starts eating it. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, eat the pizza. Pizza's so good.
Yeah. It's so good. And again, right, like I'm in Italy. Like what else are you supposed to do? Eat the pasta.
I mean, literally in Italy, all you have is bread and pasta and pizza.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like if
never
you don't eat
been,
that,
but
you literally starve. So
oh gosh, could you imagine somebody like an Italian person being like, I'm going on the keto diet? Like it's laughable. It's impossible in Italy. What do you
yeah.
mean?
I mean, I can only imagine because I'm lactose intolerant. And when I was
Mm,
in Italy, I would go order a coffee and I would ask for an alternative milk, and they would look at me like, water? Like
like,
they're
what do you
literally
want
like,
in this?
we have water. And I'm like, I'm gonna just take it straight. Just give me straight espresso.
Yeah.
Pop that right then and there. I'm just like, oh my gosh. But I think
Hmm.
that just speaks to like the diet culture in the US. Like they don't even have like
Yeah.
milk alternatives over there. And over
Hmm.
here, it's like a necessity for people and places
Yeah.
to have dairy alternatives, for example.
Hmm. Yeah. And right, that starts from a place of like, let's be accessible to people who have an actual allergy, like
Which
cannot
is
process this.
great. Which is also great.
Absolutely. And then it shifts at somewhere at some point, like, oh, actually, almond milk is a health food now. Um, according to who and what research and like how is that better? Like we literally don't even know because the research is so bad. Like, um, you know, who decided what's a health food? Mm. I don't think we have answers. Um, yeah, it's so wild, and I think about like I don't know, even all like the advertisements, like the thing, right? I don't give a shit about sports, never have. I've tried, I don't know. But you know, we all enjoy the Super Bowl for the commercials. And like this past year was like so hard to watch because there were so many like medications or GLP-1s or like whatever new nutritionist dietitian fad. I should be careful. Dietitians are like actually registered, and so you could listen to the people that have a license and a like regulatory board. That's fine. um, but yeah, it was hard to watch. And that is so everywhere. Um, that's an example I've given to people too of how normalized like diet culture is, that I still like to do like New York Times word puzzles in the morning, but I don't pay for that. So there's an ad that comes on every morning. I don't care, which is fine. But in the last couple months, I think every day it's been an ad for like Mounjaro, which is the GLP-1. What the fuck does that have to do with my little like word puzzle? Why is that an ad there? Like how much money are they paying for that ad space for the New York Times Wordle to show up there? I yeah, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. And I think the other part, oh, I mean GLP-1s is a whole other conversation too. Because again, that starts as let's make medication accessible to people who need it. Let's like find a way for people with diabetes to control their A1C, which is, yeah, great. We should do that. Um, and that shifts somehow, somewhere, at some point, it shifts into being all about weight loss. And I don't want to shame anyone for being on them. That's a choice. You can make whatever choice you want for yourself. I think it's just the way it's been advertised or targeted specifically towards women also. Um, that's what I have a problem with. I don't have a problem with people doing it. Like, find the way that works for you if that's something that you want. I can't ignore the way it's presented, I guess. Um, oh yeah.
Where, what recommendation do you have for women to find that balance, whether that's with diet cultures, finding your voice, all the different spaces that you are involved with? What advice do you have for women to find that middle ground where it's between being your true self and, you know, not necessarily feeding into this other side of it, but maybe like learning and educating and those kinds of things for themselves? Like where do women find that balance in that space?
Hmm. I think we all find it by not finding it first.
Great advice. That's the show, guys.
That's it. That's all I got. Um, no, I think I end up, I guess, narrowing the scope big time because I end up on one side or the other, and I'm like, ooh, I hate both of these things. Where can I find something in the middle? And yeah, I do think it like requires a little bit of like additional research. And then it's almost like you should research the research. At least go to the part that like says who paid for the study. Or go when you're chatting with your doctor, try to understand like where they're coming from with like wanting to prescribe medications. You know, I have heard stories of people who like what's the right word I'm looking for? Kind of fudge numbers in order to be able to prescribe a GLP-1, right? And it's like, ooh, so what is the goal, right? Like you already don't even meet like the requirements for that drug to be prescribed. But if we fudge the numbers and say that your BMI is worse than it is, then you do. But it's like your BMI already isn't that bad. So what is the goal? Like a super underweight, like whatever. Right? It's like talking to your doctor though to understand like where are they coming from? Why do they want to prescribe that? Is that something that's actually going to hit the root of the issue, or is it solving a symptom? And yeah, I think talk to your friends, like talk to people, figure out what they think and feel about it, any of it, of the world, because you may agree, you may not, but like at least gives you a place to shout about it, to someone that might actually respond instead of just shouting off into the void of your own brain. I think any of the things, mental health, diet culture, body shame, all of it is so isolating. And like it is already radical a little bit to like not allow yourself to fall into that hole. Um, to find a way to be yourself. Whatever that looks like. I've told a lot of my LGBTQ clients too, right? There's a lot of people who are like scared with the current political world. um, and who am I to tell them they can't be scared? Um, and I think we're all looking for, not all, but a lot of us looking for something to do about it. And it's like actually just like living out loud and like living truthfully to who you are can be enough of like resistance, right? Because, you know, all of those things, right? Like medications, if the goal is to make you smaller, if politically the goal is to make you like less active, less visible, everything is to try and get everyone to shut up and be small. And if you can be the one person that is like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go to Pride and have fun. Or even if it's not that, I'm going to go and like hold hands with my partner, or I'm going to go to Italy and eat the pizza. Like, right, whatever it is like at least you're not making yourself small for whatever reason. Like there's no good reason to make yourself small.
I love that. That's so good. So where can people connect with you at?
Yes. My therapy practice is called Center for Greater Healing. You will find me on there. My name, Rebecca Juliana, is probably pretty findable. A lot of places, all of the social medias. I am out and about.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. You've walked such a powerful path, and I know our listeners are walking away with so much courage, truth, and inspiration from this conversation. Before we close, do you have any final message you would like to leave with someone listening today who may be standing in their own ashes and not sure of what to do next?
Yeah, I think I don't know, a lot of beauty I think comes from ashes. And so like deciding where you want to go from there. Not allowing the ashes to keep you small either. I was actually laughing at myself because I was thinking about that's how podcasts do. Like, what's your final word? And the thing that came to my brain truly was throw away the underwear that gives you a wedgie. But like actually, you know, you can take that metaphor as far as you want. Get rid of the thing that gives you a wedgie.
Open for interpretation.
Yes, open for interpretation, or as literally as you want.
I love that. That is awesome. Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to our listeners on the Empowered Path podcast. You can connect with Rebecca at her therapy practice for Center for Greater Healing, located in Toledo, Ohio. And make sure you like and subscribe this episode, and make sure you comment below some of your biggest takeaways from this episode. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thanks for having me.